right, just about ready, everyone. And thank you for joining us if you're joining through Facebook Live right now. Okay, looks like we are good to go, and welcome everyone this evening to an information session on our G3 eligible programs. If you are not familiar with G3, it stands for Get Skilled, Get a Job, and Get Ahead. And G3 is here to provide funding for programs that are leading to careers that are high demand in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And tonight, those programs that we are going to look into relate to careers in public safety. So first, we're going to start with Lisa, and she is leading our Administration of Justice programs.
Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about some careers in administration of justice and criminal justice are sort of synonymous. And if you want to just scroll to the next slide, just so people have an understanding, our criminal justice system in the United States has three main parts, and those are law enforcement, courts, and corrections. And all of those three areas exist at local, state, and federal levels. And you probably feel like you're getting a college class right now, but there's also some private organizations that support the criminal justice system, such as law firms, and also some private companies that would work directly with law enforcement and the courts as well. So our Administration of Justice certificate provides a really good foundation for entry-level careers throughout those agencies in the criminal justice system, as well as those private organizations. Some of these careers include police officers, deputy sheriffs, state troopers, corrections officers, dispatchers, loss prevention officers, deputy court clerks, and then some of those other administrative positions that aren't in those public agencies, but would be in the private agencies. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of the kind of what a day in the life of some of these positions would look like. It's important to kind of get a feeling for, what you're going to do, what you might be doing in a future career. So police officers, deputy sheriffs, and state troopers, these are sworn law enforcement officers. And so when we say sworn law enforcement, we think of people who have arrest authority. So people who have a badge and a gun, people that you probably think about as driving around in police cars, or even criminal investigators, canine officers, that type of thing. So these officers are responsible primarily for maintaining public safety, primarily by responding to citizens' calls for service, providing traffic control and enforcement, and then enforcing laws. And that includes identifying and investigating suspected crimes. One thing about law enforcement is there is no typical day for a law enforcement officer. The work that law enforcement officers do varies based on the agency they work for and the shift that they work and the position that they have. So just imagine how different it would be working for an urban police department like the city of Richmond, Virginia, or Washington, D.C., compared to what someone in, say, Frederick or Augusta County would do. Really, really different type of work. And then each day the work is different as well, just depending on what type of calls come in. So that's what's very attractive to many people who choose this profession. Entry-level officers are typically assigned to patrol, where they work in shifts that are usually 10 to 12 hours long. And many agencies rotate hours. So for example, an agency might have officers working days for 2 weeks, and then evenings for 2 weeks, and then midnights for 2 weeks. But that's not, it's not consistent among all agencies. So those are important questions to kind of consider when you're pursuing and investigating different agencies. So one of the things I like to tell people is that law enforcement is not at all like it seems on television, which tends to portray the excitement and the drama that's associated with the criminal justice system. But it's a day in a typical, 45 minutes or an hour in a show about policing or police officers is probably as much excitement as an officer might get in 6 months or a year on the job. Television shows don't show the parts of the job where officers are working with citizens, giving them information, writing reports, or doing training. They kind of show the more exciting parts of the job, which is definitely not all of it. So one of the great things about taking college classes and learning about the criminal justice system is just finding out more about what a day in the life of an officer is like, how to do the job, how they do the job, and differences among agencies within the jobs. So law enforcement is kind of the focus of criminal justice, but dispatchers who are not, we don't think about them maybe as much as first responders, but they actually have that first contact with many citizens. They receive the calls when people call about an accident, when they call about an emergency, when they call about a concern. They gather important information, they give important information. They might be sort of a lifeline between that person until the first responder, whether that's a police officer or an emergency medical services person, can actually respond. And they are a key part of the criminal justice system. And again, they, like law enforcement officers, typically work shift work. Then just a little bit about corrections officers. So if you think about police officers, law enforcement officers enforcing the law, if a suspect is brought to court and found guilty, they may be sentenced to a period of incarceration. And that's where corrections officers come in. They work in jails and prisons. They're typically assigned to shift work. Again, there's maybe a day shift or a night shift that's 10 or 12 hours long. And they're responsible for the care and custody of the inmates to ensure their safety and to make sure that all of the institution's policies and procedures are followed. Their jobs tend to be a little more routine than law enforcement officers, but they do have to be ready and able to address inmates' emergency or medical issues as well. And so those are kind of the primary jobs we think about, but I want to just go ahead to the next slide and talk a little bit about the path to becoming a law enforcement officer. So there's some slides here, and I'm not going to read every single word, but I will say that you can look at any website and you'll see for these entry-level jobs, the minimum educational requirement is oftentimes a high school diploma or a GED. And some people get mistaken by that, saying, oh, I don't need more education. The truth of the matter is that these are highly competitive positions, and that most agencies either prefer or require some college credential, such as a certificate or even a degree, to get an entry-level position and then to advance in the field as well. And so if you want to just go on to the next slide there. So the pathway to becoming a law enforcement officer is relatively long. It can be anywhere from 3 months even to over a year. In addition to having those basic requirements, there's a bunch of different steps. And those include everything from the application to a written test, a physical agility test, an interview. Sometimes there's a polygraph examination, and in every case, there's going to be a thorough background investigation. And a lot of times in the classes that we offer, students will get a really good idea about those background investigations and even start preparing for them while they're taking classes. And so if you could just move on to the next slide, okay. And after becoming a law enforcement officer, employees go to a police academy for up to 6 months, where they learn the actual, they learn the laws, and they learn how to make an arrest, how to use all the police equipment. And after that, they go to their agency where they're probationary employees. So the process is relatively long. And if you could go to the next slide. Okay. So many times students will say, well, I don't want to be a patrol officer. I want to be a crime scene technician, or I want to be a detective. The first step to those specialty positions is being a patrol officer. So people usually have to do about 3 years on the job before they're able to apply for those positions as well. If you could move to the next slide. Okay, and then similarly with federal law enforcement, such as the Federal Bureau of Investigations, or the FBI, DEA, Department of Homeland Security, they're very competitive. They oftentimes require bachelor's degrees or even advanced degrees in specific subject areas. And many of the applicants who are accepted for those positions started out in patrol with local or state law enforcement agencies. Okay. And thank you for your time, and I hope this was helpful.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. And I know I've learned a lot this evening as well, just thinking about the pathway and that there really are very specific steps that you said. It was also very competitive, but worthwhile. So thank you for describing those for us. And now we're going to go to Paul. He is going to share his slides regarding EMS. Sorry, Paul, you're on mute.
There we go.
Perfect.
Fire and EMS. We offer several programs here for things. First is emergency medical technician, which is kind of your entry level. Then we go to advanced emergency medical technician, and then we go to paramedic. Now, paramedic, you can either get a career study certificate or you can actually earn an associate's degree as a paramedic. A lot of departments are starting to move towards associate's degree. So earning an associate's degree can give you a hand up. Also, a lot of departments, if you want to promote, especially for the career departments, you need a degree to promote. So if you're looking to become a lieutenant or captain or even fire chief or EMS chief one day, you're going to need a degree. Now, here, EMT is the entry level. So one full semester. We also offer summer classes, which is an accelerated class, which is about 8 weeks. And we also offer a dual enrolled program for high school students, which takes a year. You have to be at least 16 to get into this program. There's other requirements such as a background check, drug screen, physical. You have to be able to do the job. Next level is advanced emergency medical technician. For advanced emergency medical technician and paramedic, you have to be at least 18 years old. The curriculum expands. This is when you start doing a little bit more skills. You can actually give medications. You can learn a lot more about anatomy, physiology. You can start IVs. And then paramedic, it's 2 years for the career study certificates. It's actually 5 semesters if you're not already an EMT when you start to get your paramedic associate's degree, because you spend that last 5th semester taking the extra classes that you need to get your associate's degree, such as English and math and stuff that not all are required to get your career study certificate. Now, after you complete the program, that makes you eligible to sit for the state license. The class does not give you the certificate. The state requires you to take the class before you can sit for the state license, which is a written and practical exam. Job outlook, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is supposed to be grow at a rate of over 6%, not 65. 6% over average for other professions. Is a job that's in demand. Population is getting older, so you need more EMS. Also, workers are leaving. Unfortunately, the job tends to be stressful, so not everyone makes it to retirement. So there's lots of other occupations. And if you don't like EMS, but you want the degree, there's lots of other occupations out there. The pay, this is again from the Bureau of Labor Statistics from the government. The median salary was about $36,000 in 2020. There's a lot of EMS earn a lot less, but some EMS earn a lot higher. If you work for a career department, especially in this area, in the DC area, starting salary for that for firefighter EMT is about $48,000 to $50,000 a year. There's lots of different types of EMS, just like with the police department, there's lots of ways you can go. There's public safety, which is what most people think of EMS. That's where the fire department, the ambulance shows up, called 911. Then you got private services. An example here would be in this area is Valley Medical is a private service, and you have third service, transport service, hospital bases, lots of different ways you can provide EMS. Other options, flight medic. If you like flying, you can work on a helicopter. Depends on who you work for. This is a Maryland State Police helicopter. And this one, you also have to be a police officer and a medic. But if you work for Air Care, which is local, you don't have to be a law enforcement. That just goes straight into medic. A lot of hospitals use EMTs as ER techs. You work in the emergency room in the department. So you're not out running calls in the ambulance. You get to work in a nice warm emergency room. Medical assistant. You can work in a doctor's office. You provide patient care. You draw blood work, you do office work. You can help arrange testing. Search and rescue. All the Coast Guard search and rescue people are at the minimum of EMT. Some of them are higher than that. You could also work or volunteer for organizations such as Potomac Appalachian Trail Club, Mountain Search and Rescue, things to provide search and rescue. Park rangers, a lot of park rangers are also EMTs, because especially when you're out in some of the parks out west, or even parts of Shenandoah, you may be the closest medical care for quite a distance. If you like work in movies or TV, most movie companies, most television shows have a paramedic or an EMT on staff to provide for injuries to the cast and crew. Some of that's contract work. Some of them I know some medics who run their own companies, and they hire medics depending on where they're located. Summer camp. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H all use EMTs at summer camp. Some of that could be just a part-time job while you're in college, help pay for college, or you can some camps running year round. Theme parks. Adventure World, Six Flags, Sesame Place, all have EMTs. Disney all have EMTs in the park, and they go and provide care to the patrons that are visiting the park. Other places, first aid or occupational. Some of the larger factories, you get hired to be a factory worker, but you also get paid extra to be an EMT. And so if somebody on your plant gets injured, your job is to go out and provide care for them while you're waiting for the fire department or the ambulance to show up. Overseas, they go out and provide first aid care to the people living in the embassies. Cruise ships use EMTs. You can work a summer or work a year contract on a cruise ship, sail all over the place. Blood and organ donation programs hire EMTs and paramedics. Dispatchers, just like they could be police or fire or a combination of both. I think it'd be fun. This is just pictures from our class that we've recently had here in Lower Fairfax. If you want more information, there's lots of information under the go into healthcare, go into EMS on the Lord Fairfax website. We give you lots of information about the program. That's all I have.
So much. That was fascinating. Just like hearing about all the local opportunities and opportunities abroad. You know, if you're working within the national park, or like you said, you're working in a local factory, manufacturing plant, or even just like you said, going overseas. Like I said, I've learned a lot today. I think we all have. And thank you so much for sharing those pathways with us. So with that being said, since we have heard from both Lisa and Paul, like Paul said, if you do want to learn more, you can go to our website to check out some of those programs yourself. You can go to lfcc.edu/G3 to see specific G3 funded programs, or like they said, you can go to lfcc.edu/explore to take a look at our programs in depth. If you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the comment section. We will be monitoring those, or feel free to, if you were a student and wanted to share your experience, either in EMT or EMS or ADJ, we would love to hear from you as well. So everyone, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Paul and Lisa, for presenting, and have a great night.